This is Stacy Hawkins Adams. I am here with some of the 10 writers who have joined me in producing a beautiful collection of essays that we have titled On Womanhood, Connecting and Thriving in Every Season. We are producing this book in a pandemic, as you all know. And so that is why you see the cover over my shoulder rather than me holding a literal book in my hand to share with you. But we are excited that when you get that copy of the book in the hand, it will be a hardcover book. It will be a beautiful book designed with this beautiful cover you've seen. The ebook version is available for sale now. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But the hardback cover version is a wonderful book for you to have for a coffee table book, as a gift book. It includes a few pages for journaling. So we believe it's worth the wait. So if you're interested in the hardback, go ahead and order that now. It'll be coming to you soon. And we are excited to get our copies as well. So once those copies arrive to us, you'll see us back on Facebook and on other social media platforms sharing those books with you. So I would like to welcome my fellow writers in on Womanhood, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about our writing journey and ask them to chime in with us. We have Margot Clifford. You want to wave? There you are. Jackie Hunter. We have Wanda Lloyd. Danica Neblett Robinson. Jacqueline J. Owensby. Rita Flores Moore. Belinda Todd. And then, of course, our illustrious artist, Dawn Edge Campbell, is here with us as well. She designed that beautiful cover for us. And there are a few writers who are not able to join us. Some may chime in a little bit later. You may see some other folks come into the Zoom, but Najee Mathis Rutledge, Cassie Edwards Whitlow, and then we have a college student, Nailah-Benā Chambers, who is a junior at University of Maryland, Baltimore County. We were honored to have her participate in this project and share her thoughts on leadership with us. So that is our full group. I'll share a little bit with you about Focus Writers and how it came about. So I have published 11 books at this point in time, but about I should say 7 years ago, back in 2015, I was at the height of publishing a series of books, and I was getting lots of emails and phone calls and running into people and having conversations about writing and how do you write a book. And it's such a lengthy process that there's no easy way to articulate how do you publish a book in one email, in one conversation, even in a day-long conference sometimes, which I, definitely try to share those tips. I taught a writing class yesterday. So I decided that I would create an informal group that I could meet with folks online, just kind of share information off the cuff, one-off. Anytime great information came across my radar, I would share it with the writers who were part of this online group. And then once a month, we would meet and have what I call a round robin conversation, where I would share, tips on whatever their particular projects were. And so that is how Focus Writers was born. And that is really kind of how we've operated since 2015. From 2015 through 2021, again, I would share articles, I'd share tips on writing, tips on author branding, in our Facebook group, our private space. Other members would chime in. If they had questions, they would post them in the group. I would respond. Other members collectively would be supportive and answer. And then once a month, on the first Monday of every month, we would have about an hour or two phone conversation. And as we were talking about a particular person's project, it was an opportunity for others to learn about that type of writing as well as I shared advice and tips. So probably I'd say maybe sometime in 2020, maybe 2019, because we gathered in person a couple of times. Some of the writers started saying, hey, we should do a project together. So Margot will remember this because I think Margot suggested a podcast. And I was like, I don't know about that. However, I will mention that our member, Wanda Lloyd, does co-host a podcast. So we'll have her to share about that in a little bit. So didn't think we could do a podcast. We kind of floated the idea of what can we do together as a group, because we are a group that is bonded. And we landed on the idea of an anthology. So in late 2020, they finally talked me into it in one of our meetings. That's how I recall it. I don't know how they recall it, but I recall them talking me into it, and just kind of said, okay, we will go on this journey together, but you all have to be involved every step of the way. Like, I'm not going to take the work and do it for you. This is an opportunity for you to learn how we go from idea stage to publish books. So I'm going to need you to be engaged at every level. And in that initial conversation, we kind of talked about, what are the mechanics of the business side of it? I'm not necessarily a business person when it comes to curating these types of things. And so we had decided that we wanted to donate 100% of the proceeds to a local charity, and decided we would decide on what that charity would be down the road. And we ultimately have decided that we're going to donate 100% of the proceeds during the month of March, which is Women's History Month, to the YWCA USA. So that's a wonderful organization. I will share that I am on the board of the YWCA Richmond, the local organization. They do very dynamic work. So if you're in the Richmond area, please check out ywcarichmond.org, or in your local area, just Google YWCA in the name of your city, and you're likely to find a chapter there. But we are donating to the national organization because our writers are based around the country. Wanda's based in Savannah, Georgia. Rita is based in Mebane, North Carolina. I hope I pronounced it right, Rita. And then we have a couple of members, Jackie Hunter and Cassie, are based in Las Vegas. Najri, if she's able to join us, she's based in Houston. So the rest of us are in the Richmond region, but that's kind of how we landed on that national organization. So before we even kind of launch into telling you about the book, I just wanted to have a conversation with the ladies about what this collaborative process has felt like to them, what it has meant to them, because in my mind, I think it's pretty wonderful and amazing that in January 2021, in the middle of a pandemic, we collaborated over a 13-month period to produce this anthology of essays that, as I was reading them and trying to figure out how to organize them in the book, I totally was inspired by the women's transparency, by their courage, by their honesty. I felt like each writer was writing to a reader, to the readers. Like, they felt like, to me, they knew there was someone who was going to pick up this book, be on the other side holding this book, and they wanted the person to get something from it. And so I want to thank them for that, but it really inspired me as I was editing the book. So as you would like, I'm not going to call on anyone. I'll ask you to come off of mute and maybe share what this experience has been like for you on the journey to publishing on womanhood.
So I'll jump in. And as I had an opportunity to work on this project, I also had an opportunity to reflect on my own experiences and the experiences of those who inspired me. Even though I've had opportunities to think about my paternal grandmother and her tapping me to serve as a teacher for Sunday school, and also my mom giving me an option between a typewriter or a sewing machine, I never actually reflected on it to a point that I could write about it and share with the world. So this project afforded me an opportunity to do that. So I'm grateful for that experience.
For me, it was really all about the collaboration. I really am big on that, just as a woman in general. When women come together, I firmly believe great things happen. It also afforded me an opportunity to have a time of reflection, because the original essay I thought about doing is not exactly what I did. So for me, this whole journey has been very enriching. It's opened up doors for healing, which I did not expect. And so for me, it's been very personable. And I could not have created or come up with a greater group of women to work with. It's been very enriching for me.
Jacqueline, you took the words out of my mouth, because the process was one that was cleansing. I talked about a very personal issue, and to be able to lighten that load, to get that junk out of my head, even though I thought it was an issue that I had already dealt with, it really was, it was amazing. Also, having worked with women who had already published before, who were writers in their own right, it made me feel really good to be among you. And it really was a project where we all had voices, and I feel like all of our voices were heard.
For me, it was I love the collaboration part of it, but I was in the midst of writing my own memoir when I joined the Focus Writers group. And I told Stacy that I had sort of hit a wall and I needed some inspiration. And she suggested that I join this group because just the process of talking about writing would help me, sort of push my memoir to a closure. And so that really helped me as well. And I also love the collaboration and meeting a group of new friends, most of whom were either in the Richmond area or were from the Richmond area. I've known Stacy almost all of her life. I met her in college as she was a college student, and I've mentored her through her journalism career. And so now I feel like she's mentoring me through my narrative nonfiction writing career.
This has been very special for me also, because I had a chance to share some things with people that these things have been on my mind for so long. And to have that opportunity is just wonderful. The idea that growing and changing, evolving is so important. And having that opportunity to do that has been very special. And it's also very special, as all of you have said, to work with such wonderful people and to have a leader as Stacy, who made sure that everyone had a voice in what was happening in writing the anthology. So I'm very appreciative of that.
I'm grateful because as a speaker, as a coach, my focus at the time that I started writing was on coaching young ladies through self-care. And choices are so very important in life. I've made plenty of mistakes. I know that one bad decision can change your life. And I wanted to share that in my chapter and just encourage women to think, stop and think, take your time, don't rush anything, because choices make a major difference in your life. So that's why I enjoyed it. I was able to put that in writing. And again, I also, like everyone else said, I love all of these ladies. I feel like I'm part of such an exclusive group because you're all wonderful women, professional women. I love you all.
Aww. I feel fortunate to be among such a giving group of women, and they bring with them such wisdom through their knowledge and experiences that I have grown so much in my writing and as a person. And to be able to have this opportunity to write an essay that honors my sister was hard, but I needed it to deal with my grief. So I feel lucky that they were so open and comforting and supportive of everything. I love you guys.
We love you too, Margot, and we'll talk a little bit about your essay in a moment. So
love you back.
And Dawn, I'm not forgetting you. I purposely, before we get to you, because I am going to ask you to share, I wanted to just share a little bit from the foreword that Daphne Maxwell Reid wrote for us. Daphne is, I call her a personal friend and mentor because she's such a wise woman and also very giving. So some of you all may know Daphne from one of her most famous roles. She played Aunt Viv on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and she lives here in the Richmond area, and she and I have collaborated on multiple projects. And I just happened to, I was looking for her website this morning because I wanted to include it in a newsletter that I was sending out. And I stumbled upon this History Makers page about her. And Daphne was she was the first African-American woman to appear on the cover of Glamour when she was a model. She got a scholarship to Northwestern University. There are many firsts in her life. So I think she is an ideal woman to write our forward for Women's History Month, because she is certainly a woman history maker. So if you want to look her up as just History Maker and Daphne Maxwell Reid, you'll find quite a few amazing things about the journey that she's had thus far, because she's definitely a superwoman and still on the journey. But this is one section of the forward that she wrote for us that I wanted to share with you. She says, my years of living, loving, modeling, acting, mothering, cooking, sewing, traveling, writing, and more have taught me that only time can reveal the myriad of purposes that one's journey will manifest. When we're willing to live into our womanhood, we'll summon the strength, courage, resilience, and sometimes the sense of adventure required to pursue each leg of the journey with the joy of knowing that we are growing in strength and fortitude. So I thought that was so powerful and so timely in these times that we're living in, with a war happening on the other side of the world, with us hopefully coming out of the pandemic, with everyone dealing with all kinds of personal issues and things to grow through. So I thought that was very helpful. But I also thought that that was very reflective of the cover we landed on. And so now I'm going to go to Dawn Edge Campbell, who is one of our newer Focus Writers members, but a longtime friend of mine. We have lots of connections, including sharing the same birthday. And one day she showed up at church and I'm like, oh, we're at the same church too. And she sat next to me and we collaborated on a book project prior to this. My book of personal musings called Abound. She did the cover for that. And so when we were thinking about a cover artist, Dawn was the first person to come to mind. So Dawn, if you will share a little bit about what it has meant to be a Focus Writers member, but also kind of take us through your vision for this beautiful cover. And I'll, I have it in the background for those of you who are online with us. If you go to either my homepage at my website, stacyhawkinsadams.com, you can get a better view of the cover. But even better, if you want to go to our page where we have the book for sale, it's tinyurl.com/on womanhood. But this is like a very not clear picture of the cover. I hope you can see it a little bit. But if you go to those pages and any of our Facebook pages of the members, we've got the cover everywhere on our social media pages. But Dawn, talk to us a little bit about being a member of the group and also your vision for this cover.
So this has been an amazing process for me as an artist. It's been really a turning point because being in this group has made me really think about the things that I might have thought of as far as writing, whether it be children's books or something else. So being a part of this group and being able to collaborate with these women has really helped gear my career as an artist and being able to illustrate books even more. So I am truly blessed to have had this opportunity. It came at the right time, and it was definitely a turning point in my season, which kind of reflects in the cover. With the cover, I knew that this was a very diverse group of women, all different walks of life, and I wanted to make sure that I captured that. So, in the process, which this has been a great journey just as far as process, because we all did go through the process from beginning to end, and we're still going through the process till we have the books actually in our hands. So going through the process with the ladies and giving them choices and us thinking about what we wanted the cover to reflect really helped me to come to the final product as far as the cover is concerned. But a lot of it had to do with growth, had to do with the changing of seasons. There are different types of flowers. You're not going to find these flowers all in the same place. That's not going to happen because they're different flowers that come from different seasons, because we're all in different seasons of our lives. I decided to do a silhouette of a woman so that it will reflect all women, whether age, what your ethnicity, your culture, whatever it is, it fits you. And then as far as us coming together to really hone on what the graphics would be, the ladies had a lot to do with that. And we made choices together on where certain words would be. As far as when you look at the cover, you see on womanhood, it comes right on the top of the lady, in the lady's head, which is almost like a crowning of, being a woman is a crowning. It's a glory. It's a great thing. And, just being able to reflect on it on the cover was a great process.
Awesome. And you're right about the collaborative process and the feedback that was given. And I'm going to go to Danica for a few minutes, because I know one of the things that Danica specifically asked for was something that is one of her favorite things. She wanted to make sure we included a butterfly on the cover, which you were able to very subtly but beautifully incorporate, Dawn. So Danica, you can tell us maybe a little bit about what the butterfly means to you personally as a writer, why that's, sort of a metaphor for you. And then from there, if you'll go ahead and tell us a little bit about your essay.
Certainly. Dawn, the artwork is absolutely beautiful. When you see it for the first time, it's breathtaking, and it superseded all of my expectations during the process. But I'm thankful that Dawn had an opportunity to fulfill a wish, which was the butterfly. And usually when you see flowers, you do see butterflies from time to time flittering around. But what it means for me is transformation. A lot of times we look at the beauty of the butterfly. We don't focus on the ugly phases, maybe the caterpillar, or the hidden phases being in the chrysalis or cocoon. And so the butterfly for me is reflective of all experiences we have in our lives. And I would submit that we actually experience those multiple times in our lives, which is where the womanhood aspect comes into play. I think Dawn mentioned that we're all still on this journey. And so the butterfly definitely added that extra meaning for me. When I think about my essay is entitled "Nothing is Wasted." When I think about being a mother, being a wife, being a daughter, I was going to say an aunt, but I'm not yet an aunt, but just having those experiences where when you're going through the motions of life, you sometimes think that taking your children to the next event that they have to go to, you're losing yourself. When you're spending an enormous amount of time with other people, you sometimes may feel like, where do I fit in? And so this essay afforded me an opportunity to think about how being a mother, how being a spouse, how being a sister friend actually impacts my role as a leader. And so I am able to bring into the workplace those experiences. When an employee needs nurturing, I'm able to be a mother to them, and hopefully not appear to be mothering in the sense that they think that they are my children, but also being patient when I think about being a spouse, being patient and showing grace in those times when we're all experiencing different growth at different times, and that can be translated into my experience in the workplace. So nothing is wasted, and I want to encourage all other women to not feel like in this particular season, I'm going through this and I'm doing that. What can I use that for in the future? Hopefully the essay will inspire people to recognize that they can use all aspects of their lives to be a blessing to someone else.
Wonderful. And Danica, where can people find you online?
Most of my social media
I think you're
handles
muted.
most of my social media handles is Danica Robinson. Also, I can be found on themetamorphicjourney.org website, where a lot of information can be found about me is there as well.
Awesome. themetamorphicjourney.org. Wonderful. And then Dawn, I meant to ask you that as well. Where can folks find you and learn more about your wonderful artwork?
Well, I always tell people I'm Googleable. So you can put Dawn Campbell Art, or you can go to DawnCampbellArtLLC.com.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to come back to you, Rita, because your essay opens the book intentionally. Although we all, on the back cover of the book, when you get the book, or even when you're looking at the summary online on an online site to buy it, you'll see that the names are listed alphabetically. But when you receive the book or you start reading the essays in the digital version, you'll see that they're not organized alphabetically. And that's intentional, because thinking about the arc of a woman's journey, as both Dawn and Danica have alluded to, it's not seamless, it's not cookie cutter, it's not going to be A to Z. And so really the thought behind how I organized the essays was like, what can a journey, how should a journey begin? And maybe where do you want to be when you feel like you're almost at a certain arc, not the end for sure. So I want to chat with you, Rita, a little bit about, you kind of touched on it, but why did you write about choices, and what do you hope readers will take away from your essay?
As I've stated, thank you, Stacy. But as I've stated, I have made many mistakes. And I know if I had taken my time and listened to the advice of my elders and just did the right thing, I could have avoided a lot of the mistakes. And when I talk to women, I find that we're all going through the same thing, actually, in different ways, but we're going through the same thing. And they all get the same advice from me. Take your time. Have a decision-making process. Realize that there's a way to do things the right way. Even if you feel you're losing, if you've done the right thing, you'll be glad in the end. So I wanted to start out, well, I didn't realize it would be the first chapter, but when I wrote, I wanted to start out sharing what I share with most women that I talk to when I'm coaching. I found out the difference between coaching and counseling through sharing with women about self-care and realizing one main point: they're all the same. Everyone needs a decision-making process. And so in my chapter, I hope that I've given advice as to how you should go about making decisions, making choices. Have a process already set in your mind. Like, I already know if something has to be done now, if someone tells me right now, well, it's not going to happen, I walk away. Because if I have to do it right now, there's something wrong with that picture. And that's part of my advice based on my experience. But I think when it comes to everyone's story, they all had a choice to make. They sat down, they thought about it. Many of them shared already how they reflected on things in their lives. We've all had those opportunities. We're all still going through that. So my advice to you, and I'm glad, thank you for making my chapter the first one to lead into everyone else's story. But I'm glad that you will see that you have options and that you will come up with a process so that you'll stop and think and make a wise decision, because choices can be life-changing. And like I said before, one decision can change your life. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you for sharing that wisdom. Can you also tell us where to find you online?
My website is RitaMooreSpeaks.com. And that's the best place. In most places, I'm Rita Moore Speaks. Instagram, Twitter, Rita Moore Speaks.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that wisdom. That will stick. One decision, and we have to think about all those decisions. And with that in mind, I'm going to come to you, Jacqueline J. Owensby, just to talk a little bit about your chapter and your decisions around forgiveness. And then you maybe share a little bit with us about what your essay is about.
Well, hi. Okay, I know you'll remind me if I forget. Well, as a women's ministry leader, one of my biggest thing is relationship. That's why just being a part of this collaboration means so much to me. It's very personable. I believe very firmly in relationship. And so it starts for me in the home. My essay reflects that. I talk about my relationship with my family, with my dad in particular. I was a daddy's girl growing up. And my dad and I struggled a lot. There are a lot of women out here who have experienced some type of struggle or conflict between them and their father. Fathers, they're the first man that we fall in love with. If they're present in any way, that's the man that you look to for everything. And so my essay really borderlines on the power of forgiveness. And I believe that through the power of forgiveness, we can create space for healing. And I don't want to give too much away because I want you to buy the book and go and get it. But basically, it's about forgiveness, a story about me and my dad.
Awesome. And where can we find you online?
You can find me anywhere, basically at Jacqueline J. Owensby, or you can go to stayonthevine.com and you can find me there. Facebook link is there, Twitter, Instagram, but primarily Jacqueline J. Owensby.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And then Belinda, you wrote about your relationship with your mother. So I would love for you to share a little bit about that.
Yes, it was a very personal reveal. And right now, to a little bit of an aside, I'm teaching a Bible study about battlefield of the mind. So often we have junk in our minds, things that take us into bad thinking. Very early on, I heard the word illegitimate. And I was around 9 years old. It colored my life for the next 20, 25 years. And it colored my relationship with my mother. So I explored that. And I began, and my healing, which took place before I actually wrote this, but also as I was writing, my healing involved looking at my mother through different eyes, putting myself in her body and thinking about choices, Rita, that I would have had to have made had I been my mother. And then as a young woman, you know, life kind of comes around in a circle sometimes. And you some are oftentimes quick to judge another woman or another person, but then that same situation or, some kind of a circumstance will come into your life. And so that's where I kind of park my thoughts when I begin to write my essay.
Wonderful. And so some of you all, if you're in the Richmond area, you may recognize Belinda. She's multi-talented. So she's a local actress, among other things, yoga teacher and all of that. And so she is on local TV and commercials. So you might recognize her for that. And the best place to find you, I believe you want us to go to your LinkedIn to find you, Belinda?
Yes.
Right. So that would be linkedin.com/in/Belinda Todd.
Exactly. And then you can always message me through Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And then Margot, you sort of touched on your relationship with your beloved sister. So if you want to share a little bit about that. I thought your piece was very heartwarming because like you said, it was not necessarily an easy piece to write, but I think it will be a piece that will be healing to quite a few people. So do you want to share a little bit about that and also where we can find you?
Sure. I wrote the piece for two reasons. One was that I found when I was in my 30s, there was the beginning of many women that friends of mine who got breast cancer. And one of my concerns was, how do I best support them? And it was through that, and then with my sister getting breast cancer, that I really struggled with, how can I be the best support for them? What do they need? And that's one of the reasons why I wrote it, was just a reflection on what we did to help my sister. And I feel like the other part of that was just honoring her and her strength. And it was really her courage that got us through. I think that now that I'm going through this journey too, that being a support to other women is important, especially when you're dealing with an unknown future. And I feel fortunate that I've been blessed with so many people who have just even a text message, how are you? I'm thinking of you, or a card, people, wanting to bring you food, whatever you need is really meaningful. So writing this helped me reflect on what kinds of things do people need when they need support going through some type of an illness. So that's kind of where it was coming from. But it was also very healing to be able to reflect on my sister's life. And that was very meaningful for me. It was something that I had a conversation with a good friend, and he said, it's time for you to do this. And I know it's going to be hard, Margot, but it's something you need to do. So yeah, it helped a lot. And you can find me on Facebook, Margot Clifford. You can message me through that. I'm available there.
Awesome. Wonderful, Margot. And I know that you and Wanda worked closely on this essay, so I wanted to chat a little bit about that. And I will say that although I sort of was the developmental editor, I was not the first developmental editor. Wanda read every essay and met on Zoom with each of the writers. And then Danica did another level of editing. And then Belinda also helped with copy editing and proofreading. And then we even hired an external editor because we wanted to produce the most excellent book that we could. And so Chandra Sparks Blonde, who is a fellow author. She also does a lot of editing for authors who are nationally published. And so we hired her to do some editing as well. And we thank her for her role. But Margaret, if you could just chat a little bit about you and Wanda, about what that process was like. And this will be emblematic of the conversation that Wanda had with other writers. So if you all want to chime in about your conversations with her on Zoom and with Danica, that'd be great. But tell us a little bit about what that was like.
I was so fortunate to have Wanda, who was very patient with me and did a line by line edit. And it was not only instructive to me, who was not a writer by career, really, but it was also, it inspired me, and it gave me an opportunity to really reflect and create a powerful piece. And so it was really helpful to have another person look at it through their eyes. And with Wanda, with Wanda's experience in writing, I was in awe of what she was able to bring out of the piece. And that was so helpful to me. And in writing, working on my book, I'm hearing Wanda's voice in my head as I'm writing. So it was a wonderful process. And I'm not sure 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I would have been able to handle somebody sitting down and pointing out certain things or making suggestions. And it really, I realized that I have become very open to feedback from other people about my work and maybe suggestions, things like that. And that has been significantly instrumental in me being able to write pieces. So yeah, it was a great experience. Thank you, Wanda.
Well, Margot, it was such a pleasure to edit with you and all the ladies on this project. Your essay in particular, because it was so transparent, because it was so emotional for you, because of just the subject matter that you were dealing with and the healing that you were still going through. You know, not to mention after the fact, we found out that your health had been affected similarly. The editing process for me was kind of scary at first because I have the history of having been an editor at newspapers where we were paying people to write and they were getting paid to listen to what I said about their writing. And here I was in this situation where I was editing people who are volunteering to learn really and to produce a product like the essays, the wonderful essays that you all produce. So I just appreciate the fact that you were tolerant and patient with me as I asked you lots of questions that you probably thought, what you want to know that for? But I really was trying to pull some information out of you to get some information from your souls, so that you can improve the stories and also not leave what we still do call in journalism, holes in your stories. That is, if you left some information out and a reader didn't understand how you got from point A to point B, we needed to fill that gap. And so I appreciate that process with all of you. Stacey, you want me to go on and talk about my essay? You ready for that?
Well, not yet, because I got to introduce you first.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I was going to say, thank you for doing that, Wanda. And I was going to say, one of the reasons, Wanda, she volunteered. I did not ask her to kick it off. Like everybody, I will say, just chimed in, jumped right in. They were like, I'll do this, I'll do that. And so Wanda was like, I'll be like the first editor and I'll meet with everyone on Zoom. Like I did not have to ask her to do that. And as she mentioned, we've known each other for like 30 years. I'm aging, both of us, Wanda. But I mentioned Daphne being a history maker. All of these women in our own right, we are certainly, but Wanda definitely has that role as well. I met her years ago when she was a senior editor at USA Today's newspaper, one of the first, if not the first, African-American woman to hold that title. And so she hired me as a summer intern. And she also had worked at the Washington Post and at other national newspapers. And she retired as an editor, as the executive editor of the daily newspaper in Montgomery, Alabama, which also was a history-making role that she had, or held rather. And so now she's living in her, native Savannah, Georgia, still making history there, just launched a column. And so it's seemingly tireless. She holds an Ida B. Wells Award. For those of you all who are familiar with Ida B. Wells as being a trailblazing journalist. So many accolades there. So it was truly an honor for me, Wanda, when you said, oh, I'll edit everyone. I was like, you will? Like, that was amazing to me. And not to mention, she was planning her daughter's wedding while doing this as well. So now you can tell us a little bit about your essay, Wanda, but I wanted to thank you properly and also kind of give that background.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And I must say that my daughter was not engaged at the time we started this project. So, when that happened and I started planning when I went, oh my gosh, how am I going to find the time to do this? But, we're women and we step up to the plate and we get things done, and we did. My process of editing with you meant that I understood everything you were writing about. And so many of you were writing about emotional things. You were writing about leadership. You were writing about your mentor in relationships and mentoring and all. So I think I said to Stacy at first, well, I'm going to write about mentoring. And then somebody else wrote about mentoring. I think I'm going to write about leadership. And then Danica wrote about leadership. And I hadn't started my essay and I didn't want to be redundant. in the process of this book in July of 2021, I had a death in my family. My aunt, Terry Springer Walker, who was the first dark-skinned model in the Ebony Fashion Fair, working for the company that produced Ebony and Jet magazines back in the 1950s and 60s. And I posted a little bit of her story on Facebook and a little bit of our relationship on Facebook. And many people said to me, oh my gosh, thank you for that story. I remember her at fashion fairs, at fashion shows. I remembered how proud I was that a dark-skinned woman was walking across the runway, and I'd never seen that before. And I saw so much of myself in her. And others said, I hope you write more about her because we want to know more. And so that's why I wrote a story about Terry Springer. She married into my family, into the Walker family, but most people know her as Terry Springer. I wrote about her as a career woman. I wrote about her early years growing up in Alabama. And then I wrote about how when my mother died, Terry, who was very close to my family, she came to the funeral, and we were in the funeral car on the way to the funeral or after the funeral. And she said to us, my daughter and my husband and I were in the car. She said to my daughter, I'm going to be your grandmother from now on. My daughter was 13 years old at the time, and she knew how close my daughter and my mother were. And so she took that role on, and she said, I'm going to be your mother. And so she came to my daughter's high school graduation in Greenville, South Carolina. Terry lived in Columbus, Ohio. She came to her college graduation also in South Carolina. When I changed jobs and we had big events, she also came to those things. And she just showed how proud she was of me. And she really supported me as if in the role that my mother would have supported me. And so that's why I wrote the story. And the story is called My Aunt Terry Fashion's Black Stallion, which is a nickname that she got when she was modeling for Ebony Fashion Fair.
Wonderful. History maker writing about another history maker. I love learning about her because I used to go to those Ebony Fashion Fair shows when I was growing up in Arkansas. So that's wonderful history there. And where can we find you online, Wanda?
Well, I'm all over social media, LinkedIn, Facebook. My author page is Wanda Smalls Lloyd. That's the page for my memoir, Coming Full Circle from Jim Crow to Journalism. And I'm on Twitter, and I have a website, and it's just wandalloyd.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Wanda. And Jackie, your essay sort of anchors the book, and that's intentional because you are like just truly an inspiration to me personally. I met Jackie when she was living here in Richmond, and she decided to then make Vegas her home, and she travels and she just has fun. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be Jackie when I grow up. So Jackie, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you chose to write what you chose to write about.
Well, I chose to write about change and adaptation, adapting to different situations. I think it's so important for people to feel comfortable with change. And one of the things that I say is change is going to happen, whether you want it to happen or not. So it's a good idea to try to create the kind of changes that you want in your life. And so in my essay, I try to give strategies that can be used to help people reach their goals. And when you set goals and you can reach those goals, you reach your full potential. And that's the whole message that I have in my essay.
And she's a longtime educator, retired educator. I see that coming through, that level of teaching. And where can we find you online, Jackie?
My website is The Rippy Effect. It's RIPPYEFFECT, The Rippy Effect. And my maiden name is Rippy. That's where the name Rippy has come from in the website. And you can find a lot of different things about my nonprofit and also my other book that I've written.
Yeah, she's written a wonderful YA book, young adult book about science. You know, it'll lure in young readers about science and all that. What's the title of your book, Jackie?
It's called Lost in the Red Hills of Mars. and it's about a teenager who lives in the first human colony on Mars.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So I'm going to share a little bit about my essay. And before that, I'll say Danica has been monitoring our chat. So we don't want to belabor everyone's time, but if there are a couple of questions that she's noticed there that maybe we as a group can answer, she's going to share those. But I'll just quickly share that I, like Wanda, was like, what do I want to write about? I was encouraging everyone else to write and couldn't land on what I wanted to talk about. And so I just thought, in honor of Women's History Month, they're often unsung heroes. And I have quite a few in my life. I could probably name 5 or 6 people that I'm close to that I consider my personal sheroes. But one of the ones I decided to write about was a woman named Margaret Williams, who was my children's Nana, I call her. So actually, she has grandchildren, and they called her Nana. So she allowed my children to join in on calling her Aunt Nana when she began to take care of them. And so I just talk a little bit about being an Arkansas native, living in Richmond, Virginia, working a busy job as a reporter at that time. And my former husband, my children's dad, had a busy job. And so we were looking for the right sort of extended family to help take care of them. And into our lives came Margaret Williams, who filled that role at a time that was very helpful. And she did embrace my children. She became their Nana. Her family was already almost our family. We were close family friends from church, but we definitely became knit together as a family. And just I could talk about that journey of having someone who undergirds you when you need it most, because there were times when I thought, oh, I'm going to have to not be this full-time journalist to take care of my child, my one child at that point. And I also write in the essay about when I had my son, when he was 12 weeks old, on my first day back at work, it happened to be 9/11. So I sit at my desk at 8 o'clock, and then the planes are hitting the towers. And as a journalist, you go into full on work mode. There's no, let me go home and check on my kids. But I didn't have a fear at all, because I knew that my kids were in great hands and that they were going to be taken care of while I lived out my purpose. So my essay is really sort of an ode to making sure that we look at the folks who undergird us, who support us, who help us be who we are and help us do what we need to do to walk in our purpose, because that makes it their purpose as well. So I feel like every book that I've written, Nana's a part of the reason that happened. And so that's kind of what my essay is about. So I hope that you will pick up the book, enjoy everyone's essays, be inspired. I hope it will inspire you to maybe even start journaling. Like I said, in the hardback versions, there are some pages for journaling. So hopefully you'll be inspired to kind of think about parts of your own story or your own journey that you want to document for yourself or for your family. Danica, I did want to ask you, are there any questions that you feel like we may not be able to get to everyone, but are there a few questions that maybe we can answer?
We do not have any questions, but I am certain inquiring minds want to know, why did we choose the YWCA and how the book will benefit the YWCA?
Yes, well, thank you for sharing that. So yes, as I said earlier in the conversation, the proceeds are going to the YWCAUSA.org. And if you look at their mission, the mission of that organization is to empower women and to eradicate racism. So, which I think is a unique combination for an organization like that. So often the YWCA is known for hosting battered women's shelters, or maybe hosting counseling groups. That is a part of what they do, but many of them also provide affordable childcare for women and families around the country. And they also offer courses on financial literacy or helping women with their workforce development needs. And so they really do produce or take efforts to help women empower themselves. And the eradicating racism is a part of that, because if you can elevate women economically, then you really are helping them to empower them. And sometimes systemic racism prevents the elevation of women financially. So that's kind of a summary of what they do. If we had the organizers on, they certainly would say more. But that was one of the reasons we chose the organization. And as I said early in the call, we chose the national organization because the writers in this collective are based around the country. So that allows us to each support the YWCAs in our area. Are there any other comments or questions from among you ladies?
I see Najri has joined us.
Hi, Najri. I want to switch screens so we can see you. There you are. Hi, Najri. You want to wave to everyone?
Hello. I'm so sorry I'm late. It's been one of those weeks, but thank you. Glad to be here.
No problem. We are women on the move, and so we all understand that. So everyone has shared a little bit about what their essay is about. So if you will share a little bit about what you chose to write about. And I'll say that Najri is our member that's based in Houston. She's a law professor there. She's a freelance writer for USA Today. So maybe share a little bit about what you wrote about and why you chose that, and also where people can find you online.
All right. So after Stacy kept encouraging us to, dig deeper and to be personal, I decided to share a personal story that I've never shared before in writing, which is my father's death and my decision not to attend his funeral. So it was very good and therapeutic because I knew why I chose not to attend, but I've never actually communicated it before. So it was therapeutic, and I've shared it with my family members already, and they were happy because we've talked about it before. So it was a very liberating piece. But the whole goal was talking about self-care. And how sometimes self-care is radical. When we think about people like Meghan Markle, when we think about some of our athletes who have made radical decisions not to participate in the Olympics or whatnot, sometimes radical self-care is unpopular, especially when you're inconveniencing other people. So I'm encouraging people to try to sometimes be selfish and put themselves first or prioritize themselves. So I have a website, NajriRutledge.com, and I'm at Najri Rutledge on Twitter. So it's real easy. As long as you know how to spell my name, you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I think this is a perfect note to end on: women and self-care. And I thank you for having the courage and taking that leap to share such a personal story in this collection, because as I was reading it, I was like, wow, I'm so proud of her when I wrote it, because that's not a popular decision that you made, but it was truly an act of self-care. And I think that that's going to really encourage a lot of the readers. And so thank you for sharing that message. And so I think we'll end on that note, unless anyone else has any parting words, to celebrate women in your life, those unsung heroes, celebrate yourself, take an act of radical self-care. I see Belinda's hand, and read these chapters, because I think what every person has written, everything from forgiveness to leadership to making choices to, everything we've talked about. If you just read each of those chapters and come away and say, what can I do differently or better in my own life after reading this? Even Margot's chapter about helping her sister through such a difficult journey, there's something there for you. So Belinda, I'm going to let you have the final word. And again, before I let you sign off, because I'm going to let you sign off, I just want to say again, you can find the book. It's a short URL we created, tinyurl.com/on Womanhood. Or you can go to each of these writers' social media pages and you'll find the links there for the book. Or you can go to stacyhawkinsadams.com. As of now, we have the book on Amazon. It will also be available in independent bookstores soon. We are getting it in that distribution system. So I wanted to let you know that you'll be able to find it everywhere nationwide. And so Belinda, you have the final say. Thank you everyone for joining us.
I could not leave without probably expressing what's on all of our hearts. Because of you, we did this thing. And because of your patience, your kindness, and your high bar for excellence. And I think we owe you so much gratitude, and we just love you.
Oh, thank you. Y'all gonna make me cry. Don't do that. But thank you, Belinda. It's really a joy to work with each of you all. And to that point, there are some members of Focused Writers who were not able to participate in the anthology. And I will say that they have been the wind beneath our wings. They have been supportive members, even those who have joined recently in the past month or two. They've been helping spread the word about the book and all of that. So I am truly honored to lead this group, and it's been a labor of love working with you all on this project. And I think I see your hand, Wanda.
Yeah, I was going to say you should tell people how to join the Focus Writers if they have an interest.
Oh, great point. Great point. Again, so if you go to my website, stacyhawkinsadams.com, you'll see a tab for Focus Writers. But if you want to go directly there, it's focused-writers.com. And there is a membership fee for the group. That's just, it kind of helps with some of the things that we need to do as a group throughout the year. So a minimal fee, I think. But yeah, focus-writers.com if you choose to find out more. There's also information, I added it just today, about the book on that page. So you'll find out about the membership opportunity at the top of the page. And then on the lower half of the page, you'll be able to find out more about On Womanhood. So thank you, ladies. This has been a wonderful time to celebrate. And as I said, for our viewers and our readers, you will see us soon, hopefully, fingers crossed, in the next few weeks, holding our books. So don't get tired of us. When we get them in hand, we will be celebrating all over again that the books have come in. So in the meantime, enjoy the ebook version, and we hope that you'll spread the word about the group Focused Writers, but more importantly, about On Womanhood. And happy Women's History Month to you all.